When you hear the name Cleopatra, what's the first thing that pops into your head? A stunning beauty, right? A femme fatale who seduced the most powerful men in the world. For centuries, that's been the story. But what if I told you that story, the one we all know, was basically a carefully constructed lie? Let's uncover the real Cleopatra. And that right there, that's the whole key to unlocking the real Cleopatra. Her greatest weapon was never her beauty. It was her mind, her ambition, and her absolute refusal to let her kingdom fall to the greatest superpower of the ancient world. So where did this whole seductress image even come from? Well, you can bet it wasn't written by her friends. This story was propaganda, crafted by her enemies, the Romans. And it's a story that's been running for over 2,000 years, popping up everywhere from Shakespeare to the big screen. I mean, the story we're usually told is pretty simple and, let's be honest, pretty cinematic. You've got this exotic queen who uses her looks as her #1 weapon. She's the ultimate enchantress, luring these powerful Roman men like Julius Caesar and Mark Antony into her web, all to serve her own ambitions. And yeah, countless movies and books have really hammered this image home. They paint her as cunning, sure, but her cunning is almost always tied to how she looks, to her allure. It makes for a great story, but it also conveniently skips over where her real power came from. So let's ask the big question. What if this whole seductress legend wasn't history at all? What if it was just a carefully crafted piece of political propaganda, a story invented by her enemies to ruin her reputation and justify taking her down? Let's look at the real story. To really get who Cleopatra was, you have to look at how her reign started. She wasn't born into some peaceful, stable kingdom. No way. From day one, she was thrown right into a political firestorm. Just imagine this for a second. You're a teenager. You're supposed to be queen, but instead, you're exiled, on the run, and your own family is plotting to get rid of you for good. This wasn't just palace drama. A full-blown civil war was going on, and her brother had kicked her out. Her life was literally on the line. So what does she do? She comes up with one of the most audacious, high-stakes plans in history. She knows the Roman general Julius Caesar is in the city, and getting to him is her only shot. First, she's got to sneak back into Alexandria, which is crawling with her brother's soldiers. Then comes the famous part. She gets herself smuggled past the guards by being rolled up in a rug. And then, this dramatic reveal right in Caesar's private rooms. And just like that, she secures the alliance that puts her back on the throne. And here is the thing you have to understand about that whole rug story. This wasn't some kind of flirty move. This was pure survival. A queen in exile risking everything in a desperate gambit to win back her kingdom. It was a calculated, brilliant political move, and it worked. She landed the most powerful ally in the world. So yeah, the alliance with Caesar got her back on the throne, but what kept her there wasn't her face, it was her brain. In fact, if you look at what the ancient historians actually wrote about her, they were way more focused on something else entirely. And you don't have to take my word for it. This is a direct quote from the ancient historian Plutarch. He's writing about a century after she died, and he makes it crystal clear. She wasn't some jaw-dropping beauty. Her real power, he said, was in her presence, her conversation, just the force of her personality. Plutarch actually goes on to say her most captivating feature was her voice. He described it like this incredible instrument. You know, one that could switch between languages as easily as a musician changes notes. This isn't about seduction. This is about being an expert communicator, a master diplomat. And this is where you really see what an intellectual powerhouse she was. This wasn't just a ruler, she was a legitimate scholar. She spoke at least 8 languages fluently. I mean, think about that. She could negotiate with ambassadors in their own language, no translator needed. She studied complex sciences, she wrote her own books, she took part in scientific debates. In an era where most rulers couldn't even read, Cleopatra was a brilliant mind, and she used every bit of that intelligence as a political weapon. Okay, so if she's this brilliant, multilingual, strategic genius, how on earth did history get her so completely wrong? Well, the answer is pretty simple. Her story wasn't written by her. It was rewritten by the men who defeated her. Yeah, you heard that right. That phrase, snack like villain, is actually how some Roman propaganda described her. And it's perfect, right? It shows exactly how they tried to reduce this incredibly powerful political rival into just a dangerous temptation. So why would they do that? This slide just lays it all out. On one side, you have the reality, a powerful, independent female ruler, a brilliant strategist fighting to save her country. And on the other side, the Roman spin, an evil foreign temptress who used sex to corrupt Rome's noble leaders. This wasn't just trash talk, it was a political weapon designed to turn the entire Roman public against her. And the mastermind behind this whole character assassination? None other than Octavian, the man who would eventually become Emperor Augustus. See, he was locked in this brutal civil war with his rival, Mark Antony, who happened to be Cleopatra's ally and lover. Octavian couldn't just tell the Roman people he was going to war with a celebrated Roman general like Antony. No, it was much, much easier to frame the whole thing as a righteous war against a wicked foreign queen who had him under her spell. Now, let's be clear. This doesn't mean we should paint Cleopatra as some kind of saint. Far from it. She was a ruler in an absolutely ruthless time. The sources tell us she was ambitious, sometimes cruel, and could be incredibly cold. She was a complex, formidable woman. Not just a victim, but a powerful player who was just as decisive and courageous as any man she faced. When you look at her life, her entire reign was a fight against impossible odds. From snatching her throne back as a teenager, to forming alliances to keep Egypt independent, to her final, tragic showdown with the unstoppable Roman war machine. And in the end, at just 39 years old, facing defeat, she made one last strategic move, choosing to end her own life rather than be paraded through Rome as Octavian's trophy. And that really leaves us with a huge question, doesn't it? Cleopatra's story is such a powerful reminder that history is almost always written by the victors. Her legacy was twisted on purpose to serve a political agenda. It just makes you wonder, how many other brilliant, powerful women throughout history have had their stories rewritten, their strengths buried under layers of propaganda cooked up by the men who defeated them?